So there I was, knee-deep in what I can only describe as the suburban dream, or perhaps the suburban fever dream. We had just moved into this charming little house on a street named after a flower, which is always a red flag, Primrose Lane. It sounds like a place where people compete over lawn gnome collections and the secret ingredient in their prize. Winning Chile is a quiet desperation. My neighbor, Brenda, was the self-appointed queen of Primrose Lane. Brenda, with her perfectly coiffed hair that defied both wind and logic, and a smile that was just a little too wide, a little too bright. It was the kind of smile that suggested she knew where all the bodies were buried, probably because she put them there. Our first interaction was over the fence. A classic. She was pruning her rose bushes with the precision of a neurosurgeon. I was wrestling a rogue garden hose that seemed to have a personal vendetta against me. She called over, her voice like honey mixed with tiny shards of glass. New to the neighborhood, are we? Welcome. I am Brenda. I introduced myself, and she immediately launched into the neighborhood bylaws, which apparently she had memorized. No trash cans visible from the street after 6 p.m. on Tuesday. Holiday decorations must be taken down by January 5th, and absolutely, under no circumstances, were we to plant non-native perennial grasses. It was an impressive and terrifying performance. A few weeks later, Brenda invited us to the annual Primrose Lane potluck and bake-off. She said it was a tradition. What she meant was it was a gladiatorial arena where casseroles were weapons, and the prize was a year of smug superiority. I am not a baker. My attempts at baking usually result in objects that could be used for home defense. But my partner, bless their naive heart, insisted we participate. It will be fun, they said. A great way to meet everyone. Famous last words. So, I decided to make a quiche feels sophisticated, right? It says, I am an adult who has my life together, even if I was just Googling how to not poison people with eggs. The day the bake-off arrived, the community park was a sea of gingham tablecloths and passive aggression. Brenda was floating around like the ghost of Martha Stewart, judging everyone's contributions with a laser-like gaze. She had made a 7-layer lemon chiffon cake that looked like it belonged in a museum. It probably had its own security detail. I placed my humble quiche on the designated table, nestled between a jiggling monstrosity of a gelatin mold and a pie that had an unnervingly perfect lattice crust. I felt like I had brought a participation trophy to the Olympics. The judging began. Brenda, naturally, was the head judge. She tasted each dish with a theatrical slowness, making little notes on a clipboard. When she got to my quiche, she took a bite. Her face remained a perfect, unreadable mask. She chewed, thoughtfully, then made a small, almost imperceptible nod. I held my breath. Was it possible? Had my mediocre egg pie actually impressed the queen? She moved on, and I started to relax. Maybe this was going to be fine. Maybe I had misjudged the intensity of Primrose Lane. The potluck part of the evening was in full swing. People were mingling, laughing, pretending to like each other's potato salad. I was talking to a guy named Gary, who was explaining his theory about how squirrels were government drones, when Brenda tapped the microphone on the small stage. It was time to announce the bake-off winner. My heart did a little pitter-patter. Not because I thought I would win, but because the suspense was finally ending. Brenda cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming and for bringing such varied offerings. The word varied dripped with condescension. After careful consideration, she continued, holding up a golden spatula trophy. The winner of this year's Primrose Lane bake-off is... She paused for dramatic effect, scanning the crowd. Her eyes landed on me. My partner squeezed my arm. My stomach did a flip. This was Italiano, the ultimate underdog story. The newcomer who defied the odds is me. Brenda, she announced, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. Of course, a wave of relieved, unsurprised applause washed over the crowd. She had won every year for the past decade. It was less a competition and more a coronation. She then added, but I would like to give a special mention. Oh, here we go. The pity prize. A special mention for the most ambitious entry. Her eyes locked with mine again. Tekichi. Tekichi. A few people clapped politely. Ambitious. What a wonderfully backhanded compliment. It was like calling a baby interesting looking. So, that was that. I was publicly acknowledged as the ambitious failure. Fine. I could live with that. The party started to wind down. People were packing up their dishes, their children, and their shattered dreams of culinary glory. We stayed to help clean up, because that is what good new neighbors do. As I was folding a tablecloth, I overheard Brenda talking to another neighbor, a woman named Carol, who looked perpetually terrified. Brenda was whispering, but her voice carried. The quiche was quite good, actually, she said. Surprisingly so. A little too good, if you ask me. Carol murmured something I could not hear. Brenda's voice dropped even lower. It takes a certain kind of person to make a quiche that perfect on their first try in a new neighborhood. A person who is trying to send a message. A person who thinks they can just waltz us in and take over. My blood ran cold. Take over! I was just trying not to get salmonella. This was not a power play. It was an act of culinary desperation. I realized then that my quiche had not been seen as a friendly gesture. It had been interpreted as a declaration of war. The next few weeks were tense. My morning waves to Brenda were met with a steely glare. My trash cans were inspected with forensic intensity. One morning, I found one of my prize-winning, non-native perennial grassy switch I had planted out of pure spider-prooted, and lying tragically on my lawn. There was no proof, of course, but I knew Brenda was sending a message back. The quiche war had begun. I thought, this is ridiculous. This is a grown woman, a pillar of the community, engaging in horticultural warfare over an egg dish. I decided to take the high road. I would kill her with kindness. I baked a batch of cookies. Very average, slightly burnt cookies, and took them over. I rang her doorbell. She opened the door just a crack, peering at me through the gap. Brenda, I said, offering the plate. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I just want to be good neighbors. Peace offering. She looked at the cookies, then at me. Her eyes narrowed. I do not accept gifts from usurpers, she hissed, and slammed the door in my face. Usurpers okay. So kindness was not going to work. The high road was closed for construction. It was time to descend into the petty, suburban mud. The game, as they say, was on. My partner tried to reason with me. Just let it go, they pleaded. She's just a weird lady with a cake obsession. But it was too late. My honor, and the honor of my ambitious quiche, was at stake. My counterattacks were subtle at first. I started leaving my trash cans out until 6:01 p.m. I accidentally let my sprinkler water her prize-winning roses for just a little too long. I bought the loudest wind chimes I could find, an entire orchestra of dissonant clanging, and hung them right by her bedroom window. It was a symphony of annoyance. She retaliated by reporting my perfectly trimmed hedge to the Homeowners Association for being a quarter of an inch too high. It was a cold war, fought with garden shears and HOA complaints. The absurdity escalated. I started subscribing her to dozens of free magazines. Catalogs for everything from farm equipment to cat sweaters started arriving at her house daily. Her mailman hated me. She, in turn, somehow managed to sign my number up for automated spam calls. I was getting 20 calls a day about my car's extended warranty, a car I did not even own. We were locked in a stalemate of mutual irritation. This was going fine, in a terribly twisted sort of way. It was a hobby. It gave my life a strange, new purpose. Then came the annual holiday decorating contest. This, I learned, was Brenda esse magnum opus. Her Christmas display was legendary. People drove from neighboring towns to see it. It was a synchronized light show set to a full orchestral score, complete with animatronic reindeer and a life-sized nativity scene where all the figures bore a faint, unsettling resemblance to Brenda herself. This was my chance. This was the final battlefield. I spent weeks planning. I was not going for beautiful or festive. I was going for psychological warfare. My theme was a post-apocalyptic Christmas. I bought a dozen of those giant inflatable decorations as Santa. A snowman, a team of reindeer, and I set them all up in a state of disarray. I deflated them just enough so they looked sad and defeated. I draped them with fake cobwebs and flickering, dying lights. The centerpiece was Santa, face down in a kiddie pool, looking like he had given up on life itself. It was bleak. It was chaotic. It was a masterpiece of holiday despair. The night of the judging, the street was aglow. Every house was a beacon of cheer, and then there was mine. A monument to seasonal depression. Brenda's house was, as expected, a dazzling spectacle of technical perfection. And right next to it was my sad, dystopian nightmare. The judges, who were of course led by Brenda, walked down the street. When they got to my house, they just stopped. They stared. Brenda's face was a glorious picture of pure, unadulterated rage. Her perfect smile twitched primera a di donne. Italiano, I had broken the queen. She turned to face me from across the lawn. Her eyes were burning with the fire of 1,000 suns, or at least 1,000 competitively baked lemon chiffon cakes, and in that moment, I realized this was no longer fine. This had gone from a silly neighborhood feud to something much, much darker. She pointed a single, perfectly manicured finger at me, and mouthed a single word I could not quite make out. But I am pretty sure it was not Merry Christmas. And that is when I saw it. A glint of something in her other hand. It was the golden spatula trophy from the bake-off. She was holding it like a weapon. This was not going fine at all. This was going very, very badly. This was how people ended up as the secret ingredient in next year. As prize-winning chili on Primrose Lane. I slowly backed away, into the safety of my post-apocalyptic Christmas hellscape. My partner was already inside, packing a go-bag. They had seen the look on Brenda's face, too. We had to get out. We had poked the bear, and the bear was coming for us with a shiny, golden spatula we left that night. We just packed what we could and drove away, leaving behind a deflated Santa and a legacy of ambitious quiche. We never looked back. Sometimes, I wonder what happened on Primrose Lane. I imagined Brenda, standing victorious on her perfectly manicured lawn, a golden spatula held high, the undisputed queen of her tiny, terrifying kingdom. And I think, you know what? She can have it. The suburban dream is not for me, especially when it tastes like vengeance and lemon chiffon. So, that is the story of how a simple quiche led to my exile. What is the most absurd neighbor story you have? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed my descent into suburban madness, do not forget to share this video, give it a big thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button for more tales of things going horribly, wonderfully wrong. Thanks for watching.